Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I am Deepika Mehto, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. In an attempt to halt almost 7 months of conflict with Israel, Hamas delegation all set to travel to Cairo to resume Gaza ceasefire talks with positive spirit. Protest in Georgia continues as government pushes foreign agent bill. PM Irakli rejects US European Union criticism of draft law. World struggles to cope with climate change-induced extreme weather patterns. Heatwave sweeps India, flood and rains in Kenya and Texas. 39 killed and 70 missing in rain hit Brazil. And high voltage campaigning on for the third phase of India's parliamentary election. Top leaders hold rallies and roadshows in various constituencies. So those were the top headlines of the hour that we are tracing for all our viewers here on DD India. And to begin with the top news of the day. Well, talks on a truce in the Gaza conflict are making progress. Hamas is sending a delegation to Cairo to discuss a truce deal. Now, as per the Egyptian sources, the Hamas and the CIA officials will meet Egyptian mediators on Saturday. Hours after US CIA Director William Burns arrived in the Egyptian capital, Hamas said that it is sending a delegation to Cairo to discuss a deal for a truce along with the release of hostages in Gaza. Egypt, along with Qatar and the United States, have been leading efforts to mediate between Israel and Hamas to broker a deal for a ceasefire. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said the U.S. has not seen a comprehensive plan on Israel's thinking for a potential military operation in Rafah on Friday.
We've been pretty clear. We haven't seen a comprehensive plan, as it relates to their thinking on the Rafah operations. We have been also clear that of our concerns of any major operations, military operations into Rafah, we have said, and you all have heard us say, there's more than 1 million Palestinian civilians living seeking refuge in Rafah, and we want to make sure that they are their lives are protected, and so that is important. And we want to continue to have the conversations that we've been having with the Israeli government.
A landfill in a public area in central Gaza has now become a significant issue for environmental hazards. The domestic waste has been piling up, attracting flies and producing foul smells, damaging the environment as well. The waste has brought diseases as it is a residential area and was not originally designated for waste disposal. Outbreaks of diarrheal diseases and hepatitis A were among the indicators of dire water and sanitation crisis. The environmental hazard associated with such landfills includes stray dogs, proliferation of insects, as well as environmental pollution and the degradation of the surrounding environment across the area. Taking note of the fact that Iran and Israel have opened their airspace for several days now, India's Ministry of External Affairs has now issued an advisory that Indian nationals should remain vigilant while travelling to these countries and be in regular touch with the Indian Embassy. Now, this marks a relaxation of travel guidelines to these countries, as the government had earlier, in the middle of the Iran-Israel military conflict, advised the Indian nationals to not travel to Iran and Israel till further notice. Moving on to the Russia-Ukraine conflict updates, a Russian drone struck Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv, early on Saturday. According to the officials, the attack sparked fire in an office building and injured 3 people, 2 of whom are being treated in a hospital. Regional governor, writing on the Telegram messaging app, said the emergency services were bringing the fire under control. Hope Hicks, a former top aide to former U.S. President Donald Trump, testified on Friday at a criminal hush money trial case. She said that Trump told her to deny Stormy Daniels' allegations in the final days of the 2016 presidential elections. Hicks was intimately involved with the final stages of Trump's successful campaign for the White House when hush money payments to adult star Stormy Daniels were allegedly made. Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records to conceal the payment. He's now denied all the wrongdoings. However, the 12 jurors and 6 alternates have yet to hear from the main players in the case, including Daniels and Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen. The defense also argues the hush money payment was made to spare Trump's family from embarrassment and not to protect his presidential campaigning. Bribery charges have been filed against U.S. Representative Kohler for ties with Azerbaijan. Democratic Representative Henry of Texas and his wife were federally indicted on Friday on more than a dozen charges alleging that they accepted at least $598,000 in bribes from both an oil company owned by the Azerbaijani government and a Mexican bank. The duo is now accused of setting up front companies that entered into sham contracts with the banks and the Azerbaijan government. The indictment also charges them with acting as foreign agents without properly registering with the U.S. government. Now, Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobakidze rejected U.S. European Union's criticism of the controversial draft foreign agents law on Friday. Georgian Prime Minister said that the opponents are unwilling to discuss it. Thousands of Georgians took part in fresh protests against the proposed legislation. The ruling Georgian Dream Party were determined to get the bill signed into law by mid of May. And for several days, protesters surrounded the parliament building in Tbilisi to block the bill's passage and also clashed with the police. Now, the European Union and the United States have urged Georgia to abandon their legislation or risk harming its chances of European Union membership and a broader Euro-Atlantic future as well. The bill now would require groups receiving more than 20% of their funding from outside Georgia to register as a foreign agent. Moving on, Britain's opposition Labour Party won a parliamentary seat in Northern England on Friday and control of several councils, inflicting heavy losses on the governing Conservatives to on-pile pressure on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The thumping victory set the tone for what will be a closely watched 2 days of local results before a national election this year that polling shows could put Labour leader Keir Starmer in power and also end 14 years of Conservative government. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said on Friday that he was disappointed in opposition Labour Party gains of several local councils, but he also remains focused on the job as the UK leader. Now, Venezuelan opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez said on Friday that President Nicolas Maduro's government would have already banned him from public office if it had been planning on blocking his presidential. Gonzalez, a former diplomat to Algeria and Argentina, was named by the Unitary Platform Opposition Coalition last month as its candidate for the 28th of July presidential election. Gonzalez will appear on the ballot for 3 opposition parties, while President Maduro is set to represent 13 parties. Now, if elected, Gonzalez said rebuilding a normal diplomatic relationship with the United States would be his priority. And now in DD India Live, let's quickly get you some weather updates. Heavy rains battering southern Brazil have killed 39 people and the death toll is now expected to rise as 68 people are still missing. Brazil's southernmost state of Rio Grande do Sul is grappling with one of the worst storms in recent years, prompting the state government to declare a state of public calamity. Now, authorities have said that the havoc has affected more than 20,000 people. The storm also triggered landslides across the region. President of Brazil also visited affected locations and discussed rescue efforts with the governor on Friday. Heavy rains across Kenya have killed at least 210 people since the month of March. Weeks of torrential downpours have triggered landslides and washed away homes across East Africa, raising fears of more floods and higher casualties, as heavy rains continue to pound the East African nation and its neighbors. Heavy rain brought flooding to parts of southeastern Texas. Texas governor has issued a disaster declaration for the area as well. Now, flooding is expected to continue in parts of central and east Texas through the next week. Authorities have evacuated some residents living along the banks of the east fork of the San Jacinto River, as on Friday, the river swelled to 75 feet above the sea level. A flood and landslide triggered by heavy rain have now killed 14 people in South Sulawesi. Over 100 people have been evacuated so far. The early morning floods in Lubuk Regency affected more than 1,300 families and damaged more than 1,800 houses. The water levels have since started to recede in some of the areas. The Indonesian government will now permanently relocate almost 10,000 residents after a series of explosive eruptions of the Ruang volcano has raised concerns about the dangers of residing on the island in future. About 9,800 people live on Ruang Island in the province of North Sulawesi, but in recent weeks, all the residents have been forced to evacuate after the mountain has continued to spew incandescent lava and columns of ash kilometers into the sky. Now, this week, the authorities have also raised the alert status of the volcano to the highest level, closed the provincial airport in Manado, and also warned of a possible tsunami if parts of the mountain collapse into the surrounding waters. Moving on, the fear of H5N1 bird flu virus spreading widely across the United States. Now, health officials have now warned that dairy workers remain at risk from the virus that is infecting dairy herds, and also urged them to wear protective gears to avoid any sort of infection. Now, infection by the bird virus is rare in humans, and the dairy workers' case, first reported in the month of March, represents only the second known human infection in the United States. It follows a worrisome spread of the virus in a variety of mammal species, raising concerns that widespread exposure of people could also cause the virus to spread more easily among the population and spark a global pandemic. Earlier, World Health Organization, or the WHO, has also issued warning that there is a risk that the H5N1 bird flu virus, present in many wild birds, may infect cows in the countries beyond the United States as they migrate. Meanwhile, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency has toughened important requirements on the US breeding cattle over the H5N1 bird flu virus. The first confirmed case of highly pathogenic avian influenza in a dairy herd on the 25th of March and the second human case in 2 years on the 1st of April have heightened concerns about the US about its spreading of the virus to animals and the people. Since 2022, bird flu in the United States has infected over 90 million chickens, more than 9,000 wild birds and 34 dairy herds, as well as one person in Texas who came in close contact with infected cattle and another person after exposure to poultry. Now, a selected collection of watches owned by Formula One legend Michael Schumacher will go under the hammer in Geneva on the 13th of May. The Rare Watches auction will include a section dedicated to this group of watches, highlighting key moments of Schumacher's career. The combined value of the 8 watches that is to be auctioned is estimated at around $4 million. The watches include an FP Jones Vagabondage 1 and an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, 2 personalized watches bearing the Ferrari logo and commemorating racing titles won by Michael Schumacher. It's now time to take a quick and short break on DD India Live. What's still to come? India's Panchayati Raj system highlights strides made in women's leadership. And Indian states all decked up for third phase of the polling. This year in heat throwing serious challenges, but we will bring you a special report on that also. And in cricket, Royal Challengers Bengaluru all set to take on Gujarat Titans in IPL today.
The massive crackdown against protesters has been questioned across continents, particularly when the US has been preachy across the world on questions of democracy, freedom, and the right to protest.
How the social media and as well as mainstream media was censored during COVID and the elections and even during Ukraine time.
The UK is not speaking about the US, but if the same thing would have happened in India, there would have been a big polygon, a big drama and a big chatter even in the UK universities, like what is India doing?
Welcome back. After that short break, you're watching DD India Live with me, Deepika. Moving on, with an aim to further boost the bilateral cooperation between India and Maldives, the fourth meeting of the India-Maldives high-level core group was held in New Delhi on Friday. Now, both the sides are continuing their discussions on wide-ranging issues related to bilateral cooperation. This also includes defense cooperation, development cooperation projects, efforts to enhance bilateral trade and investment, and capacity building initiatives as well. During the meeting, both the sides are also reviewing the ongoing efforts to enable continued operation of Indian aviation platforms that provide humanitarian and medvac services to the people of Maldives. India prides itself on a unique system of rural governance known as the panchayati Raj, that is an emblem of decentralized power at the grassroots level. Now, India shed light on the remarkable progress made in women's leadership within India's Panchayati Raj system at India's CPD 57 side event in UN. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, emphasized the transformative impact of women's empowerment at the grassroots level. Take a listen.
India prides itself on a unique system of rural governance known as the Panchayati Raj, an emblem of decentralized power at the grassroots level. And unlike municipal governance systems found elsewhere in the world, the Panchayati Raj is a sterling example of direct democracy that facilitates active participation from all residents of a panchayat through the Gram Sabha, or the assembly of all adult members of the community.
Now, residents across India have been grappling with searing temperatures as scorching heat wave grips several parts of the country. Authorities now predict severe heat wave conditions, which is likely to persist in few places of India till the 5th of May. Meanwhile, the Weather Department has also forecasted light drizzles of rains in northern part of India for the next few days. And now it's time to get you the latest on world's largest democratic elections across India. The third phase of voting in the ongoing Lok Sabha elections will take place on the 7th of May. And in this phase, voters across 93 Lok Sabha constituencies in a total of 12 states and union territories will exercise their right to cast their vote. Now, last month, the Election Commission of India postponed the polling for the ongoing general elections in Madhya Pradesh's Betul following the death of the BSP candidate from that particular constituency. The polling in Betul will also now take place on the 7th of May. So as the campaigning for third phase of Lok Sabha elections intensifies, with top leaders holding back-to-back rallies to woo the voters, and in a power-packed schedule, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Jharkhand, UP and Bihar today in order to garner support in party's favour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also hold a rally in Jharkhand's Palamu. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also hold a rally in Lohardaga district of Jharkhand. He will also hold an election campaign in Bihar's Darbhanga. Later on the day, Prime Minister will also hold a rally in UP's Kanpur. So campaigning for the third phase of Lok Sabha elections is currently in full swing, and in order to garner support in favour of party candidate Aditya Yadav, former UP CM and Samajwadi Party Supremo Akhilesh Yadav is all set to hold a rally in Gunnor district of the state. Samajwadi Party Supremo Akhilesh Yadav and party leader Dimple Yadav will also hold a road show in UP's Mainpuri. Meanwhile, Rashtriya Janata Party leader Tejasvi Yadav will also hold multiple rallies across Bihar. So the election fever has gripped parts of India, and many states are all teched up for the third phase for polling on the 7th of May. Although the arrangements are in place, the searing heat has thrown a serious challenge to the administration and the Election Commission. Ravi Dhiman reports from Karnataka.
The heat is on, quite literally so, in the peninsular India, breaking records of past many decades. The heatwave conditions have made life miserable in vast parts of southern India. Many state governments are taking preventive measures. Kerala has already declared holidays in the schools. But areas which go to polls on 7th of May are facing a serious challenge. The first problem is being faced by the leaders who are campaigning for the votes. Take the case of Union Minister and BJP candidate for Dharwad Lok Sabha constituency, Prahlad Joshi. As mercury soars northwards, Prahlad decided to move early in the day and join many during their regular morning walks. The meeting served dual purpose, connecting with the voters and yet managing to beat the heat. Statewide, other candidates are also taking precautions of evading the heat and doing campaigning either in the morning or in the evening. But the real challenge is for the district administration. Surging mercury has prompted a series of steps by the officials to ensure that the voting doesn't get affected.
Conducted in the peak summer, that is in May 7th, we have elections in Dharwad. So in such a situation, heat wave guidelines and what are the precautions to be taken and what are the guidelines to be adopted, Election Commission has already given a directions on that. We are ready with the adequate medicines required for this heat related illness. Already we have distributed, supplied polling station wise, say ORS packets and other heat wave related, illness related medications, whatever precautionary measures are required, we have already given all this medical kit to the polling station wise polling staff. And apart from that, we are going to deploy one staff from the medical and health department in the polling station. In case of any emergency or any requirement, our staff will extend the health support from our side.
The authorities have also streamlined deployment of ambulances and medical staff in and around the polling booths. One health worker will be deployed in all the polling booths, and provision for ORS packets will also be made.
And especially we are giving focus to the senior citizens because they are very prone to this, senior citizens and persons with disabilities. So these people have been given special focus and special queues have been formed, and they are ensured proper shade is provided and proper sitting arrangement is provided. Extra chairs have been provided, and wherever there is heat, and we have provided them fans and somewhere with coolers also. So all these arrangements have been made to combat this heat wave.
With the meteorological department warning of continuing rising mercury, the real challenge is to ensure that the voting percentage doesn't slump down.
It's a challenge for everyone, including the Election Commission of India, the district administration and the political parties, to ensure that voters come out in large numbers despite the weather vagaries and exercise their franchise. So far, the Indian voter has ensured that he overcomes all obstacles, man-made or otherwise, and help democracy thrive in India. With camera person Mor Mukut Sharma, Ravi Dhiman, DD India in Dharwad, Karnataka.
The Embassy of India in Muscat brought down the curtains on its landmark 8-month Mandvi to Muscat lecture series this week, concluding an insightful exploration of the Indian diaspora's deep-rooted connections with Oman spanning centuries. Over 300 attendees from Omani, Indian and Indian Omani communities witnessed the culmination at Al-Wadi Al-Kabir that featured scholars, historians and prominent individuals sharing profound insights. A quick update on sports now. Royal Challengers Bengaluru will host Gujarat Titans in the 52nd match of the Indian Premier League at Bengaluru's M. Chinnaswamy Stadium today. Kolkata Knight Riders defeated Mumbai Indians earlier by 24 runs at the Wankhede Stadium on Friday. Kolkata Knight Riders they set a target of 170 runs for Mumbai Indians, but MI got it all out on 145, falling short by 24. For Kolkata, Venkatesh Iyer scored 70. Mumbai's own batting struggle persisted, and despite Suryakumar's valiant effort, Stark's brilliance ultimately sealed Mumbai's fate. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from DD India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Deepika Mehto, and from all of us here in New Delhi, thank you so much for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.